I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out.
Hello, Miami. Welcome to 305 Live. Of course, I'm on location. Welcome to a July 4th edition, and it's my first ever commitment episode. And you guys know this young man. All right, he's a good friend of the show. He's a great friend of the show. He's actually the show's best friend, it seems, all of a sudden, man. Q, what's up, brother? How's it going?
Brother, I feel that way. I feel like, I gotta be in the top tier of guests at this point, right? I mean, and no disrespect to all the rest of them, right? I mean, I gotta feel like at this point, we're the collab, the collab list at this point. I gotta feel like, at the very top of it, despite everybody else you've had on. So definitely, man. Listen. Glad to be on with you, brother. One half of the College Blitz podcast, also the I Hate Football podcast, but definitely always a pleasure to be on with you, brother. Good to see you.
Likewise. And thank you so much for inviting me to the College Blitz podcast. We had a great time with Russ Morgan on there, your co-host. It was a great conversation, and it's been showing because it's done very well on X, and it's done pretty well as well on YouTube, man. So whenever you want to have me back on again, I'm very happy
to, man. We're trying to get it how you get it, brother. Trying to get it how you get it, and always a pleasure to have you on there, man. And again, bro, one half of it with my boy Russ Morgan on the On Deck Russ on Deck podcast. Also when he does his own thing. But yeah, man, over here, ready to talk some Canes football, man.
Yeah, but before we speak about the guest of honor today, which is Bryce Perry-Wright, we'll see how that commitment goes. He's scheduled to come in about 30 minutes. Hopefully 247 doesn't knock us off, man, because at the moment, that's the only place where I've been able to find the live feed. So hopefully 247 is nice like everybody else is, and doesn't knock us off. That'll be one thing. But I do want to talk about today because there's been a lot of conversation about how Miami has kind of lost its momentum since the beginning of June, which we talked about on your show, the beginning of June, heading into mid-June and now early July. But the Brody Jennings landing, on the day that Calvin Russell and Bryce Perry-Wright are supposed to commit, the Brody Jennings was absolutely huge because this is a cornerback that was originally committed to Michigan, flips and commits to Miami Hurricanes. And I think that commitment's going to stick because he really likes this program, to the point that when his father passed away, he still honored his official visit as well. So how are we feeling about this young man? Because I'm excited. He reminds me of Sipo Waters. It's like a blanket over a receiver. Yeah. So how are you feeling about it, Q?
I think, first and foremost, man, heartbroken for the loss, right? Unfortunately, I can relate, to the type of loss, and you hate it for a young man, right, who's that age and at this point in his life, right, and to lose his dad, and hopefully he's got some people in his life that can fill that void for him, first and foremost, right? When you look at it in terms of the University of Miami, you have to like what you see just based on, right, first and foremost, you're looking at the position, right? A kid who, when you talk about the likes of Michigan and all these other schools, vying for his commitment, right? These are schools who have been been prominent in terms of, putting out, of recruiting high-end, DB, commitments, and then having them drafted into the NFL, right? When you look at, University of Michigan, right? Michigan's been putting out a lot of DBs here the last few years, right? And so you have to like what you see in terms of that aspect of it. Then you also look at where he comes from, right? A high school like Mandarin, who we've seen here recently, look no further than a guy like Carson Beck, right? And of course, the list goes on and on of guys who, have committed to big time programs in terms of, University of Miami, University of Florida, Florida State, right? This is a school in the Jacksonville area who puts out a ton of talent every single year. So you have to like the commitment on that end. And then not to mention the fact that you have to like, the flip aspect of this, who show, that shows the strength of the staff, to be able to identify a talent and to go after him, even though he is committed to I think what some would say a powerhouse program like Michigan, right? Committed to them, be able to flip him. So all in all, you have to like, the commitment, especially based on the fact that, they had a really nice, a month of March, right, in terms of commitments, and then a really strong, front end of June, right, and now the back end of June, there's been a little bit of, not so great news, I guess, we could say. And now landing this kid now here, in the early parts of July, I think you have to really, really, like what you see if you're the University of Miami.
Yeah, and I want to go briefly through the video because I want to focus on more on Bryce Perry since he is the topic of the show. But you can't ignore the fact that this young man committed, and what I like about him is the fact that he fits the style of scheme that Corey Heatherman wants to run, which is a fast, aggressive, schematic type of deal.
Yeah.
And he's stereotypical the DB from the state of Florida, very fast, likes bump and run, doesn't mind being left on an island, right, as well, doesn't mind coming in on corner blitzes as well. A blanket like Jalen Seabolt Waters as well. So this is exactly what I do like as far as Brody Jennings goes as well. And again, a kid with heart, man. Like I said, loses his father. I could relate as well. Loses his father and then still honors the commitment to the University of Miami. Just shows how much he values the coaching staff, values the team itself. And let me tell you, man, Mandarin, that's an area that Miami's really been going after. That's usually a Gator no pipeline, and Georgia pipeline as well, being in the Jacksonville area. So
100%.
the fact that Miami's now is creeping into their territory just shows that I'm gonna tell you something, man. And hopefully the season goes well. But Cristobal is building an empire, at the moment. He's building it with talent. He's building it with experience. He's building it with skill. He's building it with discipline. Cristobal is building an empire. I'd rather be like, I know we were 5-7, 7-5, and then 10-3 with some shakeup, but I'd rather be in a position that we are right now as Canes fans than be what Michigan State was with 1 year on the Mel Tucker or one solid season that Florida State had where they win the ACC. But what else can they account for after that and before that as well? So I think Miami is a position where they're it's to use a WWE reference. I don't know if you how into it you were back then in the Attitude Era, Will, but do you remember how Undertaker was totally indestructible? No one could take him down, and that's kind of Kirby Smart. And then all of a sudden, Kane comes into the picture, and it's a rival for the Undertaker. And Undertaker starts getting wrecked a little bit by Kane. Undertaker won the battles, but Kane won his few. I think Mario is Kane, bro.
Yeah.
I think Mario Cristobal is Kane right now, younger, just as competitive, just as fierce in recruiting, just as willing to do whatever it takes to make his team as successful as it needs to be to win multiple national championships.
Yeah, no, brother, 100%, man. When you talk, and then of course there's a lot to take in there. When you talk about all the different aspects you were mentioning, but first and foremost, when you say Mandarin, right? Obviously, Mandarin is the power, right? A North Florida power, a school, that has produced, just a ton of talent. When you look at just the University of Miami alone, and then when you look at, when you talk about, the those schools up north that we don't really, care to speak a whole bunch about, at least I don't, because they could, all of the both of them up there, they could kiss my ass, and of course, excuse the language. But
It's fine.
First and foremost, man, the area, you have to like what you see in terms of the commitment, in terms of the area, right? The school is important in terms of like, landing that presence in the North Florida area that produces just a ton of talent. When you talk about what they send out to Georgia, to Florida, to Florida State, and then again the position, which obviously you look at everything I've seen from this kid, and I don't pretend that I've seen this kid. I don't pretend that I've watched him play, or that I've watched him play live. But from everything you hear, one of the best man-to-man cover corners in the entire country. And again, I always go back to what programs are in this kid's the offer list, and of course with him where he's been committed to. And when you talk about the University of Michigan, just an absolute powerhouse when you talk about DBs and what they've recruited and what's translated to being in the NFL. So again, man, a lot to like. When you talk about the recruitment, and then also this is a big win, for the DBs coaches, right? You talk about
Yeah.
right? So they've needed this, right? And this is what we've talked about. This is what these coaches were brought in to do, right? When you're looking at the DB coaches that have been brought into the University of Miami, these are the type of recruits that people have expected from them since the time that they set foot on campus, right? And so, again, Will Harris, right? We talked about, this guy is the guy who's a master relationship builder.
Yeah.
A guy who was brought in to land these type of guys, right? Zach Etheridge, right? Brought in from the University of Houston, and so you got to be really excited, right? And it's one recruit, and I get it, but also you have to give them credit for what they did in the transfer portal, right? Because that lands on them too, right? Guys that they've been able to attract in the transfer portal. Now they're attracting these guys, in from the high school ranks, and so you really have to be excited, and hopefully they continue to build on this, going into the season, and then going into actual signing day. Hopefully they continue to land these guys and really build on this recruiting class that is, in case we haven't noticed, and I saw it the other day, it's a recruiting class that is heavy on it. Obviously, I think as of today, I think we're 7th in the country on the composite, if I'm not mistaken. But a class that is really heavy on talent outside of South Florida, right? And I don't know if anybody else has noticed that or has taken taken that into consideration, but I'd really like to see this thing kind of transition into landing the South Florida talent. But as it stands now, a class that is 7th in the country on the composite, a class that is talented, but also a class that I'd like to transition into getting some of this South Florida talent that is so vital to the success of the University of Miami, in the long term.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And the one thing, before we go into a quick commercial break, so we can pay the bills for the show, I agree with you. What I also like about the transfer portal acquisitions is that they're young and they have years of eligibility left. It's very important. They're not just one and doneers. Lucas, not a one and doneer. Poyser's not a one and doneer as well. So these are guys that I'm very, very happy about as well. All right, but before we transition to the star of the show, which is Bryce Perry-Wright, okay, we got to get a word from our sponsor, Fan Outfitters.
Ooh, Miami. I am proud to announce that Fan Outfitters is the official sponsor of 305 Sports Now. With locations in Pembroke Pines, Davie, and Kendall, you can find the latest gear and accessories for all your favorite South Florida teams. Teams like your Miami Hurricanes, your Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, Inter Miami, Miami Marlins, and many, many more. So if you ever find yourself in the Pembroke Pines area, Davie, or Kendall, please stop by Fan Outfitters, the official sponsor of 305 Sports Now.
Yeah, guys, get your gear at Fan Outfitters. They got 3 beast locations in Pembroke Pines, Davie, and Kendall as well, man. So check it out as well.
I need to get down there and find some gear, man. I need to get down there and find some Panthers gear, man. Some championship or some Stanley Cup championship gear. I haven't gotten any yet.
Yeah, man. The Kendall store is loaded, brother. I think it's their biggest store, if I'm not mistaken. I think Davie ranks second, and then Pembroke Pines is third. But the Kendall store is loaded. I remember when I first walked in there, I was buying fritanga. They have a Nicaraguan restaurant next to them,
bro.
And I saw it, and I'm like, yeah, I gotta go in here. And
fritanga, you had me at fritanga, brother.
Yeah, bro. So if you want to go to the Kendall one, man, they have a fritanga store right next door. So while you wait for your food, you can watch you can get your Panthers gear as well, man.
Panthers gear and fritanga right next to each other, brother. I'm in. I can't wait to take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so now we got to go to Bryce Perry-Wright. Okay, Bryce Perry-Wright is an individual who was slated. Many people thought. This is why I always say, man, you never know where these kids are going. Like, you never know. He was like, oh, he's a Clemson lean. 247 still has them. They haven't switched it. They still have him as a Clemson lean as well.
Yep.
But now Ball, man, On3 drops a report that he is going to Texas A&M. So a lot of Canes fans are not very happy when they got that report from Steve Wilfong. I will say this, so let's temper our anger, because these kids can flip and decommit. So let's let things play out till December or January, whenever it is that they do. So what do you think about it when you heard about the whole A&M ideal?
Bro, there's a lot to take in there, man.
Yeah.
Again, like we've talked about, right? Anytime I see a commitment when it comes to the University of Miami, whoever, I always think of first and foremost, right, the commitment itself, right? Who are they? Or 3, 4, 5-star, whatever it is. You look at the offer list, right, which is significant when it comes to Bryce Perry-Wright. And then you look at the area of the country, right? And if we start kind of on that end of things, you look at a high school like Buford, right? That actually I am familiar with based on the fact that I live in the Metro Atlanta area. I live actually, I work in that county. Very familiar with Buford High School. And the fact that these guys, man, they just put out, a ton of talent. Every single recruiting cycle, these guys are putting out talent that is going to major Power 4 conferences. You would think, based on their location, they would be a Georgia pipeline, and they really have not been over the course of the last 10 or 15 years. Guys like Darius Walker, if you look back in the last like 10, 12 years, right, tailback that went to Notre Dame and so on and so forth. So they put out a lot of talent that is not necessarily a pipeline to Georgia, but a high school that if you're the University of Miami or really anybody else, it's a high school that you really want to have a presence in. It's an area in Gwinnett County in Georgia that you want to have a presence in, and so when you look at this kid's commitment at a position that you want to have, big time commitments in, right? A kid who is an edge, right? Kind of a tweener in terms of when you look at his size and his weight and everything like that, but a kid who's obviously going to rush the passer, and a kid who is who's going to affect the quarterback. And these are kids that you really, really need to grab when you're talking about the University of Miami and really anywhere else if you're looking at trying to be successful. And so you have to be excited for what this kid could bring to your program. And if you're anybody outside of Texas A&M at this point, you have to hope that Wilt Fong is wrong. He's not usually wrong. Again, you really have to hope that he is wrong and hope that he's, considering your program, and let's not forget that it is, it's July 5th. We're looking at, a signing day being, in December. And so a lot can happen, even though I think we both agree that flips aren't necessarily the norm. They can happen. You want him to commit to you, whenever he decides that he wants to make the decision. So it's not a done deal even if he doesn't commit to you today. But, a kid who I think, when you talk about Miami, Clemson, Texas A&M, these big time programs, buying for his decision, you'd like to land him today, but in the end, we know that there's a long time till signing day.
Yeah, what I like about this kid is that he's undersized for his position. If you look at it, he's listed at 6'2", 250.
Yeah, a little bit of a
tweener.
He's
definitely a tweener. Mm-hmm. He's like, and I don't mean this. Hope nobody gets upset when I say this, but he's kind of a quicker version of Mesidor. Mesidor
exactly, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, you can line him up on the outside, but he's got numbers. Man.
And a kid that if you put like 25 pounds on him, he's Mesidor, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, but he's not. Listen, Buford puts out a lot of talent, and this kid's not a slouch. The 5th ranked player in the state of Georgia, 3rd best defensive lineman according to 247. He's always penetrating in the backfield. He's got 13 tackles for loss this past 2024 season. He's hit the quarterback 17 times and dropped them 9. Okay, as far as sacks go, so he's a guy with an insane motor. Okay, an insane motor. Plays a lot of good competition. Okay, Buford doesn't play jokes like we've talked about as well. A lot of speed, great hands, very tenacious as well. If he does fit the mold of a Kane, too. You want to add on?
Yeah. No, I was going to tell you, to add to what you were saying, that you always, again, you like first and foremost, we'll start with the state of Georgia, who, when you look at what they put out in terms of the composite, the 24/7 composite, they're putting out almost as much talent as the state of Florida, with half the half the residents, right? Half the people, right? When you talk about
Yes.
the Florida to Georgia, Georgia has half the people that Florida has, and they're putting out just as much high school talent in the 24/7 composite as Florida. So that's big. One, two. You look at again, like we talked about with the program, and again, man, you have to really be excited in terms of you always look at, right, and I think Artavis Jones kind of comes to mind when you look at a kid who is a really highly recruited kid, 4-star across the board, 5-star I think across one or two websites, but a kid who played small time college football in the Panhandle, right, who's come in and has needed some time to adjust to big time college football. Where I think when you look at a kid like Bryce Perry-Wright, you don't have that type of worry with him based on the schedule that he plays. Because if you know anything about Georgia, and specifically Buford High School, these guys play a national type of schedule.
Yeah.
So their competition, they don't lack for big time competition. They don't lack for going against big time O-line recruits and everything like that. So this is a kid that, as long as his weight is where it needs to be, I think this is a kid who you can count on contributing at a program like Miami sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if you let's look at this huddle video again. Look at the speed, the absolute
man.
aggression.
Just a disruptive
Yeah,
kid.
he's completely disruptive as well. He's gonna fit in very well with this defensive line group. Again, this has been a very good tackle class. Okay, you have two guys that I think complement each other very well. You have a guy who's 334 pounds, going to eat the blocks like Anthony Kennedy, and then you have a guy like Tyler Bacon, who's more your speed guy. And if you can add him, and also Lamar Brown, who's also going to have a Miami hat on the table as well. His commitment is coming up short. I think it's July 10th or 12th. I can't remember, because everybody seems to be committing around the middle of July, so around that time period.
Everybody committing before their high school season starts, so they would just want to get it taken care of, and then kind of go right into the high school season. So
exactly, but this isn't over. Just because Bryce Perry-Wright may commit to A&M or Clemson or Miami today, it's not over. They're still gonna come after. Him. Recently, Jason Lopez said it's a verbal commit. He's not shutting down his recruitment. That came out of his mouth, so he's still going to be getting phone calls. He's still going to be taking visits, and it's the same thing with Bryce Perry. I don't think that Bryce Perry is going to just shut down his commitment with Texas A&M, especially since that you have schools like Miami and Clemson and other schools in particular going to go after him as well. So this isn't over at all. Even with Calvin Russell today, who originally was supposed to do the show on him, but we said, if you're not going to have a hat on the table, I'm not going to give you the exposure. Is pretty much what I said. Yep. I don't think it's over either. I still think that the LSUs are going to call, the Miamis are going to call, the Syracuses are going to call.
Yeah.
So today. So we'll see how that goes.
And I also think, man, and I was having that conversation with a couple of buddies of mine who I'm literally on it's the group chat is a Miami group chat. And so we were talking about that, man, and talking about whatever may happen with Calvin Russell. And something I was saying to them, and I wholeheartedly believe it, is I don't want people to get caught up in we're not landing 5-star receivers, right? I think more than anything, I think it's a position that you have to just land talent. You have to continue to produce talent in the scheme, right? When you talk about in the offense, and I think Shannon Dawson has done that, right? We go back to the coaching staff, and you look at what Shannon Dawson has produced. They had the number 1 offense in the country last year, right? You had guys like X, you had guys like Jacoby George, right? You had Sam Brown and so on and so forth. And you look at, none of these guys were drafted, right? So if I am pitching to a potential a wide receiver commit, I'm looking at them and going, and again, no disrespect to the guys that have left and are now, which they're all on NFL rosters right now, right? As where we stand on July 5th, you have to look at these guys and go, hey, listen, you're more talented than every one of those guys that landed, that didn't get drafted and are now undrafted free agents on NFL rosters. Again, no disrespect to guys like Xavier Restrepo, who obviously was, again, just a legend, right? As far as the numbers go at Miami, a guy like Jacoby George and so on and so forth. But you have to look at these guys and go and be able to pitch to recruits and go, hey, listen, man, you're more talented on a measurable level and in a recruitment level than these guys were, in this offense, who was the number one offense in the country last year, right? And so I think you have some proof of concept. I think you have something, a resume, if you're Shannon Dawson and Kevin Beard, to be able to pitch to these guys and go, hey, listen, you're more highly recruited on a measurable level. You're more talented, right? And so if you come to this program and into this offense, you're going to be able to put up numbers, and you're going to be able, to put yourself in a position to get drafted, in a couple years. And so that has to be, in my opinion, attractive to potential receiver commits. And you're looking at a guy like Tyron Evans, right, and so on and so forth, and some of these guys that are committed who aren't necessarily 5-star guys, but I think are guys who big time recruits, who were big time recruits that big time programs wanted. And so I think they're guys that you're going to be able to bring in your program and who are going to be able to produce and put up numbers, but aren't necessarily the quote unquote, big, right, the big fish that I think a lot of fans are really yearning for, right, for the program to land. But again, we definitely want to see them land, right? We definitely want to see, guys like, your 5-star recruits, your Tristan Keyes and your Calvin Russells land in the program early on, right? We don't want to have to hope to flip them later on. On an optics level, I think it's important, but I think at the end of the day, as long as you continue to bring in talent and talent that produces in the scheme of the offense, I think at some point you're going to start to land these big fishes at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I've said this before on the show. I think this is a very wide receiver rich recruiting class. So I think whomever Miami lands is going to be very productive out in the field, on the football field, when they get the opportunity. I like the Evans pick. Evans is measurable in terms of measurables. He's tall, he's long, he's physically looking. Yeah, man.
Adult. When you see this kid, brother, he's 6'3", bordering on 6'4", over 200 pounds. Yeah. He is a kid that the SEC
he's physical
wants.
And he's physical. Yes, and he's physical. Body on body, you are in 100%. Trouble with this young man.
Can't teach that size. Guy. Those measurables, no, you can't teach that, right? And so I think, again, man, literally, I was talking to my buddy earlier today. He's like, dude, we got to start landing these guys. And I'm like, yes, I don't disagree necessarily, but I think it's more on an optics level, right? I think you continue to throw numbers at the position, even if they're not 5-star kids, right? High 3-star, 4-star kids. If you keep on throwing numbers at the position and these numbers continue to produce in this offense, again, I know it's not the answer people want to hear, but I think at some point the recruiting will be, in line with what the production of previous receivers have been in this offense with the quarterbacks that they're being teamed up with.
I totally agree with you. And a guy I like, he's a Florida lean. The funny part is 247 Sports had him as a Florida lean wearing Miami gear, which I thought was hilarious. Samarian Wingo. Oh, yeah. They had a photo of him going to Florida, like projecting to go to Florida wearing Miami gear, which I thought was hilarious.
Do better, bro.
Dude. At least like regular clothes or his helmet, from over in St. Augustine. But the guys like Gio, Leon, from what I've heard, and they all say that Miami's a good position for Samarian. If you look at Samarian's huddle video, the guy's a playmaker, dude. Double coverage. Runs very good routes, good hands, physical as well. So, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, we didn't get Calvin Russell. Listen, whomever Miami lands in this recruiting cycle, I can guarantee you it's going to be productive. I'm very happy with Van Spafford because he's a slot receiver, but you can line him up in the boundary. And if you play him one-on-one and you don't put a hand on that young man, you are not going to catch him. All right? He's gone. Yep. He's gone. And again, a kid that played in a very competitive environment in California as well, was committed to Georgia. So whatever the case may be, I can guarantee you that this recruiting cycle for wide receiver is going to be very, very talented. Right? It's 5 p.m. So let's see if either one of two things. I can either refresh and he's somewhere else, or hopefully 247 doesn't kick us off. Okay, so let's hope that they're nice, like like Huddle is. And nope, I'm going to try my best to air this on 247. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so
let's be proactive in that. I don't think this is going Miami's way. So we're not disappointed when it doesn't happen.
yeah.
I hope.
Well, like
I
said, man.
I hope it does. I don't think. Listen, it's hard to go against Wilfong when you talk about the commitments. It's
yeah, no.
Listen, that guy's as plugged in as anybody. That guy knows literally more than anybody when it comes to high school recruiting. So, again, when he puts in a prediction, it's hard to go against it. But listen, man, anything can happen. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's see what happens, bro. Let's see. Let me put this up here right now. This is the comment section. CBS Sports HQ. This works sometimes. This is fair use. This is fair use. I am commenting on the video. Please do not hit me with a copyright strike. Okay, whatever this is. 247. Be very nice.
Don't shut me down, man. Don't shut me down.
Do not do that. Oh my gosh, this is my boy, man. Have you ever interacted with this guy, Jesse Bynes, man? This guy's great. You ever met him before? Oh, he's great. I told him he needs to trademark a phrase called "I said what I said." So,
where's he from? Like, what's he do in terms of? And I'm sorry, Jesse, I don't know the content, brother. So, my apologies. Where's he out of? Like, what does he concentrate on, commitment or content wise?
All right, fill us in if you have a show, Jesse. Fill us in. As of right now, I think he's just a fan. But if you got something, man, fill it in, man. Fill it in. But he's everywhere, bro. He's everywhere. He's on. He's been on my. He's made comments on my channel. He's made comments on. I think with Kane's work crew as well.
Yeah, man.
So we'll see,
Jesse, tell us where you're from, brother. Tell us where you're from. What you're a fan of. If you put out any content, man, we'd love to have you on, man, and talk about. Right,
hold on. He's about to speak. Hold on.
Here we go.
Terrific, man. It's been a long process. You've got countless visits.
You've
wrapped up all the offers. It's been a long couple
of
years. How does it feel?
A 40-minute speech, please.
I think it's a blessing. It's definitely a dream come true. Definitely been a waiting moment for a long time. Just about that time to get ready for it.
Well, you've earned it. I mentioned you had the 4 finalists. Let's look at each one quickly. First up, Clemson. What do you like so much about the Tigers?
I love Clemson. Definitely family environment. Been there since a kid. I was like one of my dream schools to go to.
The problem with Clemson is that you can't take other visits.
Miami, what appeals so much about the Hurricanes?
I love Miami, defense they got going on, and changing the program around, Cristobal coming in and whatnot.
Your third finalist is Texas. What has the Longhorns in the mix?
Coach Starks, change the program, get all those players in, development, and good development around there.
And last but certainly not least, you got Texas A&M. What stands out about the Aggies?
I feel like that's the new D-line university.
Get the hell out.
All right, Bryce, the moment is here.
Okay.
Please tell
that was a
everybody
comment.
Where you'll be continuing your academic and athletic career.
Let's see.
So first off, I want to thank God for this moment. It's a big dream, big time coming. I want to thank my family, friends, coaches, brothers. My family's friends who all been around supporting me.
Come on, man.
Well, with that being said,
Walter Nolan.
I'll be taking my talents too. Racing Texas A&M.
Again.
All right.
Yeah, it's what we assumed. I mean, yeah.
All right, stop my share there.
Ain't much to talk about there, brother. Look, the good thing is you're not surprised. I'm not surprised. Good for him. Either. Good for him. I'm driving now, but Miami fans is 73. Damn, bro. That's impressive, man. Hey, Anthony Manzano was good, brother.
Anthony.
Seen him. You know where I see Anthony Manzano all the time? On Kane's Insight. That guy is always commenting.
Yes.
I see that guy
is.
all the time.
Yeah.
I see him all the time on the Kane's Insight podcast, man. So I definitely know the name. I know he's been on our stuff, also too. But definitely welcome him anytime he wants to comment on anything, man. But no, listen, man. Look, all BS aside, man. Look, good for him, man. You got to be happy for the kid. Anytime you're able to make a commitment, man. As a football player, you're living your dream. you commit to a Division I program, a P4 program. Hats off to him, man. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to his family. Congratulations to everything that's gonna come his way in terms of NIL. I don't, push back on anything, when it comes to that. Russell Smith, I wouldn't push back on grab the bag. I think when you talk about a school like Texas A&M, I think a lot of people, choose to always bring up the NIL factor when it comes to Miami.
Yeah.
But I think, the A&M, angle of things, I think you always have to include, NIL, which again, you're not breaking any rules. You're not doing anything wrong or illegal. I just find it funny that everybody, tends to reference NIL only when it comes to Miami. I think we should probably do the same with A&M, seeing as how they've literally never won anything on any level, right? You talk about a couple years ago when they signed the most highly recruited, the most highly ranked recruiting class in the history of 24/7.
I remember. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, only to have them literally all but 3 or 4 of them leave the program 2 years later. And so, again, man, I think it's all relative, right? Which, and again, good for him, good for his family, good for his bank account. And we'll see, man. We'll see, what happens during the season. We'll see what happens, before, signing day comes around in December. I think there's a long way to go, and so I think, Miami will continue to recruit this kid, in the entirety of the next recruiting cycle until he actually puts pen to paper with A&M. And so, man, look, it is what it is. This isn't a surprise to anybody. Again, Wilt Fong, predicted it. Most people, I think, kind of have to go with that, when it comes to where they thought he was going to go. And again, man, good for him. Again, I think Miami's in a position where they really haven't tapped into the South Florida, recruiting class and market, so to speak. And they still have the 6th or 7th ranked class, in the composite. So again, man, they sit in a good position. I think with a good season, I think they're going to have this year, 9-10 wins, maybe more than that, hopefully more than that. I think that's going to be attractive to recruits. It's going to be, a landscape that's going to make it, so that recruits want to come to Miami. And so again, man, we'll see what happens. There's still a long time to go in this recruiting cycle.
Yeah. Listen, Mike Elko is considered to be a pretty good coach as well, what he did with Duke as well. So I think that they might be in the right trajectory. But I do agree with you. The whole idea of NIL in the bag is always mentioned about Miami. They pretty much beat up Jackson Cantwell because of that particular narrative. I think NIL does play a role. Texas A&M is loaded with deep pockets as well, but he could just like the school, he could like the atmosphere, the coaching staff as well, and we'll just see. Listen, it's like I've told you guys. Miami can flip him. It's not over. They will continue to recruit him. They will continue to recruit Lamar Brown no matter what. They will continue to recruit James Johnson. I think Miami lands a D tackle or two before the end of December. Again, another thing too Miami's going to have to do is also prove it on the football field. If Miami could get 9 to 10 wins as well, if the defense shows great improvement as well this season comparable to last season as well, I do think these guys could potentially flip and end up becoming Canes in December. It's just going to happen.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off what Faith Family Football, I think, was the handle that he mentioned.
Yes. Put it back up again.
Listen, I do not, and just so we're clear, I am not going to push back, and nobody really can, right? When you're looking at those are the facts. They've had the 3D linemen recruited, in the first 2 rounds of the 2012 NFL draft. I don't push back on that at all. The only thing I'll say on that, right? This is a new phenomenon, right? When it comes to A&M, right? This isn't something where it's not like Georgia and Alabama and these guys with these long-standing, histories and resumes, right? Of putting, big-time guys in the NFL. I don't push back on the right. Shamar Stewart. And you'll have to remind me, and I apologize, I don't remember the other 2 guys. I know Shamar Stewart obviously went to the Bengals.
Walter Nolan ended it all, but he was A&M before.
But he was drafted out of Ole Miss. So I don't know if, yeah, exactly. I don't know if Faith Family Football is referencing him. my apologies that they're not right off the top of my head. I don't remember the names. I'm sure when I hear them, I'll know them. I don't know who he's referencing specifically outside of Shamar Stewart. I have to think about it. But there again, man, I'm not here to cast aspersions on anybody. Listen, it is what it is. They are who they are. They put out talent. I get it, but also these are guys that they've recruited. But remember the tail end of the Jimbo era, guys that they've kept in College Station at A&M, and guys who have stayed in the program and they got drafted, right? These are guys, and again, we can have a whole separate conversation on, recruitment and development. These are guys who were recruited as 5-stars, high-end 4-stars, and ended up getting drafted into the NFL, which it's up to you to debate on what development looks like when it comes to, to that particular end of things. But there again, man, the SEC, when it comes to line of scrimmage talent, puts them out. Oh yeah. So So there again. So Shamar Stewart, yes, he was recruited there, developed there. I think I don't remember Scourton's first name, but he came from Purdue. So he came from the Big Ten. Spent 1 year at A&M. However, it is you want to say, oh, he was developed there, whatever. I don't necessarily think he was developed there. You're more than welcome to answer back, however it is you like to on that end. And who else was it? I don't know who else he said at the very end of the message. But and Scourton or Scorton or whatever his name is, he was an all Big Ten kid. Turner, you have to remind me on Turner, brother. I honestly, I'd have to hear a first name, and that would.
I think he was an end. I don't remember. He might.
Yeah, obviously Shamar Stewart, we know well, yeah. Right? Obviously from South Florida, Miami was big on the. We can use that same math for the kid that got drafted from Ole Miss. Yeah. So we had Walter Nolan. So we said Walter Nolan. Yeah. Nolan. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, a kid who was. Yeah, and I'm not pushing back on that, and I'm not arguing that whatsoever. Shamar Turner, well, Bioplans is Bryce is committed to Texas A&M. In terms of Anthony Manzano and his comment, man, listen, I'm sure they've got a board full of people who are backup plans. Again, man, listen, let's not forget they've got the number 6 or 7 class in the composite 24/7. I'd have to look at where A&M sits. I don't think they're up that high. And 1 and 2, I don't think that this discourages them from continuing to go after Bryce Perry-Wright and also continuing to go after, high-end talent when you consider the position. So, again, he didn't commit to Miami, which is fine. You win some, you lose some. But I think Miami still sits in a very, very a good position when you look at the rankings in terms of 24/7. Like I said, they're either 6 or 7. So I don't think there's anything to worry about when it comes to that.
Thank you, Faith and Family. I just want to add. Anthony asked who I think is going to be the backup plan. I don't think they're done recruiting these guys. That's number 1. I don't think James Johnson's done yet recruiting them yet. Yeah. Number 2, Lamar Brown is also still on the table for Miami. I think he's committing next week. So that who knows where he lands. I think he's an LSU lean personally because he's literally in the same grounds as LSU. But Miami, he likes Miami. So if you don't get him now, don't be surprised if you get him in December.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
he does like Miami.
Yeah, he plays literally on the LSU campus, right? Based on was it Baton Rouge Lab or whatever the hell school.
Lab, I think it's what it's called. The school.
Lab, I know Lab is what they're known as for short, but they literally play on the LSU campus. 1 and 2, there again in terms of Faith Family Football. Hey, yeah, man, our pleasure going live, brother. Appreciate you interacting with us, man. In terms of the backup plan, I think Anthony Manzano mentioned that. I think with a staff like Miami, I don't think they shut everything down based on them not landing a kid like Bryce Perry-Wright. I think they wanted him, right? They didn't land him. I don't think that affects them in terms of we're shutting down the recruitment at the position, right? I think they've got a board that is extensive. I think they're going to continue to recruit him and other high-end dudes at the position. So I don't think there's anything to worry about there. Would you like to have landed him today? 100%. You would have liked to, when you consider a lot of different factors, right? Including the fact that, he's a kid who's an edge and who's a top 100 kid, in the country. But at the end of the day, that's not going to keep them from recruiting high-end talent to the school and the position.
Yeah, again, totally agree with you. Like I mentioned earlier, Miami's not done yet. These kids, again, it's July. Hilton Drake Stubbs committed around this time period last season, and he ended up flipping to Georgia when the season didn't go well. Florida, when it didn't go well for Miami. So we'll see what happens. Justice Scott, again, we got him late as well.
Exactly.
He was heavily with Ohio State. So we'll see, guys. It's not over yet. Again, James Johnson, I don't think that's done yet. The benefit. I also want to say one more thing about James Johnson. I gotta go soon.
Yep,
got dinner plans. I gotta go soon. But the bottom line is, though, James Johnson is not a South Florida kid. Again, that's a misconception people have had on X, and they've had also when they've commented on these platforms. He's from Fort Myers, Florida. He transferred to Northwestern, and I do believe that Miami will be making more frequent visits to those practices and so on. So that's
also.
I'm not giving up on that. Go ahead.
Born in Jersey, played high school football at Fort Myers. Literally just transferred into Northwestern. So we can't call this, he's a Miami kid. That he hasn't played a snap of football in South Florida yet.
Yeah.
So let's not forget that. I think, again, a lot of people, anytime is a big time recruit and Miami doesn't land on, they're like, Miami whiffed again. You can call it a whiff if you like. He's like, he's a backyard kid. He's really not. He's a kid who doesn't really have any real connection to South Florida, other than when he starts playing high school there. So, again, do they want him? Yes. As a kid they whiffed on, I wouldn't call it a whiff. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Q. I gotta go. I think one announcement before I go. I just want to let you guys, if you like this collaboration that is happening on a regular basis on different platforms, get ready for it throughout the season for the University of Miami, because we are going to create a segment called Our Take. Yes, Our Take. So after every single game the University of Miami plays, we will be breaking down the game itself and the following opponents. So tune in this upcoming football season as myself and Q here on 305 Sports Now. We are creating a segment called Our Take, where we'll be breaking down the game, starting with Notre Dame and the following opponent as well. So, Q, you got anything lined up before we sign off?
Brother, the only thing I have lined up, man, is, I guess, a lot, right? We've got, we get together from time to time. We're out here in very rainy, Clearwater, Florida. So bear with me with the conditions. But in terms of what we have going on, me and my buddy Russ Morgan on the College Blitz on FTSN Extra. Myself, you can catch me on YouTube and X on the I Hate Football podcast, and just continuing, to do what we do on here together, man. Anytime we get the collab, and looking forward to here during the football season, man, getting together and talking more Canes football and expanding on the content, man. We'll see. I'm sure we've got some stuff that I guess we can't really come out outwardly right now and break news necessarily, but I think we're working on some stuff that I think we'll be able to bring to the masses here in the not too distant future, and continuing to build on the brand and build on the content.
Yeah, exactly. And before we go, of course, Anthony, I will read your last comment. Hurricane fans don't understand the philosophy of recruiting. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Just because the kid committed doesn't mean Miami can't flip him during the signing. Yes, we'll be talking about this entire time. All right, as far as for me goes, sometime this week, I will be doing a special story on the 4 DB commits that Miami currently has on its verbal commitment list. I'll be doing one on Wyman, John Tavis Wyman, Jalen Seatbelt Waters, Camden Portis, and of course today, Brody Jennings as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me. Your host, Will Padron, 305 Sports Now, for Q as well. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you're in South Florida, stay dry. Have a good one, guys. Take care.
Take it easy.
Goodbye.